by using link selection, we can actually quickly explore trends across different subsets of our data. So for example, if I click on the different levels of the color variable in the fluctuation diagram, I can observe the trend in the scatter plot changing. And notice that the imaginary trend line here is getting either steeper or flatter as I click on the different levels. And this means that there's an actual interaction between the three variables, between color, carat, and price. Hi, my name is Adam. I am a PhD student at the University of Auckland in New Zealand. And as part of my PhD project, I have been developing an R package for exploring data using interactive graphics. And I'm happy to announce that the package is officially out on CRAN now. So if you want to install it and try it out, it's very easy now. And this is also the reason why I want to make this video, because I want to give you a quick introduction to the package and show you how you can use it. And then you can decide for yourself if this could perhaps become part of your data analytic workflow. Anyway, if you do decide to try out the package and you find there are something that work for you or some things that don't, or there are any bugs, then I would love to have your feedback, because I'm trying to make this into a solid data exploration tool, and hearing from you could be very valuable for me. So anyway, that's everything from me. Let's get to it. Now, to install the package, we can simply call the install packages function and pass it the name of the package, which is plotscaper. Alternatively, we can also click on the packages tab in RStudio, click install, and then find the package by name. And then we can click on the install button, and this will install the package for us. Now, what I thought could be interesting would be to take a look at the diamonds dataset from the ggplot2 package, because this is quite a popular dataset that's been showcased in the R for Data Science book, and it's also been used to show different data visualization systems and types of plots. And also it's quite a handy dataset because it's moderately sized. It's got about 50,000 cases, and there are some quite interesting features that can be shown interactively. So if you're not familiar with the dataset, you can have a look at it using the dplyr glimpse function. And we see that the dataset contains about 54,000 diamonds, which are the rows of the dataset. And then for each diamond, we record things such as the number of carats that the diamond has, its cut, color, clarity, price, etc. And to start visualizing this dataset with plotscaper, we first need to load in the package. So we call then the library plotscaper function, and then we use the create schema function. And what this function does is it creates a sort of a recipe for defining the figure, and we just pass this the dataset object, and then we can start adding plots. So for example, we can add a scatter plot of the carat against the price. We can add a fluctuation diagram of the color versus the diamond's cut. We can add a bar plot of the clarity, and then we can add, for example, a histogram of the depth. Yeah, and so now if we call this, we see that this essentially just defines like a list of messages that will be used to initialize the figure. And to actually turn this into the interactive figure, you need to call the render function. And one more thing is that it can be useful to save this whole function call in a variable. So for example, I can save this as a scene object, and I will show why this is useful in a second. But anyway, so now we've defined a plot, we've rendered it, or we've given like a command to render it using the render function, and now we can actually print it by printing the scene object. And this takes a little bit of time because there are 50,000 data points. However, if your data is smaller, then if it's a couple of hundred cases or a couple thousand, then it's almost instantaneous. Now, since this is an interactive figure, we can actually do a bunch of different things with the plot. So for example, we can do panning by right-clicking and dragging on the plot. We can increase or decrease the size of the objects by pressing the plus or minus keys. And we can also do what's called link selection. So we can click somewhere in the plot and drag, and all of the cases in that region will get highlighted across all the other plots. And here I want to show off that there are some interactions which we can do with the figure directly, as I've just shown, and also some interactions which we can do from RStudio, and some which work both ways. So for example, whereas before I had used my mouse to select the cases in the plot, I can also call a function from R and specifically the select cases function, and I can specify that I want to select the first 10,000 data points, and this will actually select the corresponding cases in the figure, even though I had called this in R. So there's actually like a two-way communication between the figure and the R session. And I can also do this to get some things from the figure. So for example, if I had selected I don't know, let's say these data points here, and I was interested to know which rows of the data those were, I could call the selected cases function, and this will return to me a vector of the corresponding row IDs. For example, here I can see that those are roughly 1200 or 1300 data points, or actually 2000, sorry. Anyway, I want to show off some other interactive features and some features of this data set. However, one thing that I found is that the interactions tend to be a little bit slower in RStudio Viewer as compared to the browser. And I don't really know why, but if you're exploring larger data sets, I recommend opening up the browser window by pressing this button, and this will launch the figure in the browser, and you will see that the interactions are now much sort of smoother than they were before. So I can do the things like panning and link selection. And now let's start actually talking about some features of the dataset. So one thing, for example, that's quite handy to do here with the scatter plot is if I decrease the point size, then one thing that this is useful for is that, well, first of all, I actually, when I have a first look at this plot with the default point size, I don't really get a good sense of what does 50,000 cases mean. But if I make the point smaller, then I actually start seeing that there's actually quite a large volume of those data points. And the other thing that I can notice is that there are these vertical bars in the figure. And specifically, if I query those data points, which means I press the Q key and I hover over them, I see that these tend to be around sort of nice round values of those data points. For example, here it's around 1 carat, here it's around 1.5, and here it's around 2. I mean, those are quite small, yeah, 2. And so what this means is that that it seems like people are actually rounding the values of the carat to the nearest nice value. And what's further interesting is that while there are some points above these bars, sort of to the right of the bar, they're not really below. And this means that people tend to round the carat values up, but not really down, which is, I mean, that makes sense psychologically, but it's quite an interesting trend. The other thing that interactive graphics are quite useful for is that by using link selection, we can quickly highlight different subsets of our data and see the corresponding trends. So for example, if I click on the different values of the color variable, I can see that there are different trends in the scatter plot. So notice how when I click on the different color values, I can see the trend here getting either steeper or less steep. So this suggests that there's actually an interaction between the three variables, between color, carat, and price. And we can see similar thing here in the bar plot. If we look at the different values of clarity, we can see that there are also quite marked differences in what the relationship between the carat and price is. And there are a couple other useful interactions we can do with plotscaper plots. So for example, with a bar plot, we can order the bars by the number of cases. And the other thing we can do is, let's say we have some cases selected here. So let's say I'll mark these cases in green. And I'm interested to see what proportion of the bars those cases represent. Now, I could try to eyeball that value and see that like, oh, let's say there seems to be more cases here in the SI2 column. But it's actually much more accurate if I normalize these bars to have the width, maximum width set to 1. And then I can see these green segments as the proportion of the corresponding bars. And the actual bar height is represented now by the bar width. So for example, here I can see there actually, that there are most cases in the SI2 category, but then I can see, for example, there are a lot of cases also in the proportionally in the I1 category. Whereas if I don't have this normalized, it's quite hard to see. And I can do the same thing with a histogram. So I can also normalize a histogram and turn it into what's called spinogram. Whereas for the bar plot, there was a spine plot. And I can also do things like I can decrease the bin width of the histogram to make the bins narrower. And I can also change the histogram anchor. So that basically shifts where the bins start from. So I hope I've given you an idea of how you can use the package to create interactive figures and explore your own data. And there are a lot of features that I will get to cover. However, if you go to the package's website, that will be linked in the video description, you can find all about the different features there. And like I said in the introduction, if you do decide to try out the package and you find that there are some things which work for you or which don't, or you find some bugs, then I would love to have that feedback, because I want to make this into a good data exploration tool. So thank you very much for watching and happy data exploration.